Good morning. This is Mary Everly, lifestyle reporter for station MERC, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Coming to you live this morning from the Golden Valley Country Club. This morning's top story. This morning's top story. This morning's top story. Minnesota nice. With us here to unravel this mystery about Minnesota nice is local expert Geraldine Veldoff. Geraldine, a Jersey girl, in partnership with Corey Bonema, a native Minnesotan, has created a website to help raise our consciousness about Minnesota nice. Now, Geraldine, what exactly is this phenomenon? What is Minnesota nice?
Great question, Mary. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what is Minnesota nice? Minnesota nice is a stereotypical behavior of Minnesotans, people born and raised here, to be courteous, reserved, friendly, all those nice things, but then there is a shadow side, as we know. It's also a stereotypical behavior of people to have the tendency to be a little passive-aggressive sometimes, and have the tendency to avoid confrontation sometimes. There's a whole slew of characteristics that we outline on our website. There are about 9 different traits. The plus side and that's what I call the shadow side. And we'll kind of give you a little bit of an overview of the site as we go on.
Geraldine, really? Is this Minnesota nice a real phenomenon, or is this just something that the university has dreamed up to get more money from the legislature?
Yes, it's real. Now, there aren't any studies that really address it head on, but there are quite a few studies that talk about regional differences in the United States, and that is real. So there was a study, for example, a few years ago that looked at what they call the geography of personality. So areas have personality, you all know that. And they found that they ranked states on a number of different traits, personality traits. And what was really interesting was that Minnesota ranks number 2 for being highly agreeable. Isn't that interesting? And can you guess who ranks first? Mary, can you guess who ranks first?
New Yorkers?
No. Our neighbors.
North Dakota.
North Dakota, you got it. So North Dakota's number 1, we're number 2 for agreeableness, and guess what we're at the bottom for? Not all the way at the bottom, but near the bottom, openness. So doesn't that make sense? Now North Dakota is ranked lower than we are there. So we're a very highly agreeable region, and we're have very low openness. There are other studies that show all kinds of different regional differences like that. There's one that won't shock anyone that looked at assertiveness, regional assertiveness. And they found that people from the New York metro area are much more assertive than people from the upper Midwest. Shocking, isn't it? I mean, so there's quite a bit like that show, yeah, we're onto something here. There was even a study that really kind of made me chuckle, where someone looked at transcripts from Lake Wobegon, transcripts, from the show, and found out that, no, I'm going to have to look at this because this is a very interesting, very odd study, but it found that Minnesotans had particularly deep, historically maintained power relations, especially along the lines of race and religion, which explains why some people who are outside of the dominant race and religion who come here have such a harder time. So there's a number of studies like that point to Minnesota nice really being real. And if you ask any transplant, you betcha they're going to say it's real because they live in it.
Well, Geraldine, so we've got Minnesota nice that's documented. What's that have to do with your website? Why'd you develop a website?
Well, I've been personally fairly obsessed with this since moving here. I moved here about 15 years ago from New Jersey. I lived in other places around the country. And when I got here, I thought, and I've lived also internationally. And when I got here, I thought I had landed in another country. It really felt like altogether a different culture. And it was like people had these secret ways of talking and behaving, and I just was so clueless, like, what is going on here? And it was very apparent, like even from the first meeting I ever went to, got into this meeting, I sat down, and the only person who really ever talked was the person who was leading the meeting. And everyone kind of, that agreeable thing, everybody kind of like shook their heads, and there was no discussion really, like substantive discussion, no disagreement. And it looked like everybody was really disengaged and anytime anybody spoke, it was just to give an information point, right? And I walked out of there thinking, oh my gosh, this is really different from what you can tell the way I'm talking, I am not from here. And so I did two things. I went back to my office and I put little signs on my door, inside my door. And one said patience, and the other said politeness. Because I knew those were the two things that I would have to develop if I were going to do well here and succeed here. Patience and politeness. So I learned a whole bunch of adaptive behaviors aside from that. A whole slew of them, and I've been sharing them with people. Every time I meet a transplant, we talk about this. And then I started talking with Corey Bonema. Now, Corey is my partner in this project. He's a Minnesotan, and he is also in HR, so he hears a lot from transplants about how hard it is for them to adjust here. And he loves Minnesota, and he wants everyone to love it, and he wants to make the state more welcoming. So he said, yeah, let's do some project. Let's do something where we can help Minnesotans. So we thought, putting a lot of information together. So mostly the site that we're trying to talk about is for transplants, okay? Just to be clear. It's for people who have already moved here. But we also have a little Minnesotans corner on the site that you can take a look at.
Geraldine, this is fascinating. You know, everyone in this audience works with transplants and wants to help transplants. So how can this be helpful to people? How can knowledge of Minnesota Nice be helpful? What can we do with this?
Yeah, well, that's the million-dollar question. So you've all heard the phrase, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. We don't advocate people completely shedding their whole personality and other characteristics when they get here, but we do advocate that they take some steps to adapt, right? So nothing like that's going to change who they are, but small things that they can do. So, for example, I kind of alluded to this earlier. For me, my characteristic, from New Jersey, from the East Coast, when I got here, my MO was kind of to be brusque. Come on, let's get going, come on. Let's get this meeting moving, let's get to the objective, come on people, and it really turned people off here. It was not the way to go. It became very apparent that was not, it was just basically pushing people away from me, pushing people away from my ideas and my projects, and it did not work. So I had to learn to weave a sense of like what I call friendly politeness into my everyday manner. And things like that are just small adaptations that we can do. It doesn't give up who I am, but it certainly makes me more successful when I'm working here and interacting with friends and neighbors.
This is great. So what are your plans for the future site? Where is all of this going? And again, how can we help our transplants?
Well, we're interested to do whatever we can to help transplants survive. Now, we have regular day jobs, Corey and I, and we're just doing this project on the side. And so, let me just say something about the website, and then I'll say maybe what we're trying to achieve and where we're going. So we thought the best way to reach out to people who have moved here already is to put up some information, give them some information about what is it they're experiencing here, and what can they do about it. Because a lot of times people come here and they don't have their sea legs. They know something's weird. Something's off. But they can't quite figure out. They can't put their finger on it. So a lot of what this site does is helps people put their finger on it and then helps give them some tips, some survival skills to adapt here. So could you scroll down, Amy? Sure. So if you go down, you get to keep going. You start to see some of the content of the site. So take a look at it. We've got what exactly is Minnesota Nice? We've got 12 tips for surviving Minnesota Nice. We've got an article down here called Building a Circle of Friends, because we hear so much from people who say, God, I can't break in. How do you get to be friends with these Minnesotans? So we address that here. We have a lot of content here. So we're looking to add content, and we're looking to, we're just starting really. So if there's anything that you would like to provide for us, if you'd like to co-write an article, if you'd like to have a client of yours submit something to the site, we'd be very open to that. One of the things that we can do for people is work one-on-one with them to learn, to understand their behaviors that are getting in the way. Like I said, sometimes my brusqueness would get in the way, and I needed to look at that. Sometimes, I needed to slow myself down. I needed to start and end emails in a polite way, friendly way. I needed to stop a meeting in the beginning of a meeting. I needed to just have informalities. Just, how you doing? How's everybody doing? And I just needed to put my foot down and just say, okay, I can get through this for 2 or 3 minutes. Little things like that. How can we help people? Just adapt a few little characteristics like that. And then when they add up over time, that can be a positive. Without giving up anything, it's not like I'm giving up anything of myself. I'm still getting to my meeting agendas, right? I'm still at my one-on-ones with my staff. Yeah, we'll talk about their vacation for a little while, and we're talking about their kids, but I still get to my stuff, right? So how do we help people identify the characteristics that they have that may be getting in the way of being successful here, and then learn just a few adaptive strategies. So what we say to folks what I'll say to you who are working with people who are maybe struggling or or you anticipate having some struggles, if you can get them a coach, I would get them a coach. We can work with people one-on-one if that would be a preference for them. We also have, if you could go down again, we also have a piece that I think is really useful that is about enlisting Minnesotans to give you feedback. So if you can get some trusted, a few colleagues that you've already made connections with and say, hey, could you give me some feedback? We have a whole article about how to go about that and how to sort of set that up. And on the Minnesotans Corner side, we have an article about how to help your transplant colleagues. Because, Minnesotans have an obligation too, especially in the workplace, to make sure that their colleagues are successful. So we have a little piece of that. So the Minnesotans Corner is over there. Let me see. What am I missing here? As far as what your question was, what can you do?
Well, Carolyn, you were spotted a couple of weeks ago with some transplants. What was that about?
That's right. What we've also started to do is pull transplants together to have conversations around what they're experiencing and what they need and what help and support they can have. So we pulled about 20 transplants signed up to come to a conversation with us a couple weeks ago, and we thought, wow, this is an interesting way to kind of keep a momentum going and to help at least small groups. Just the fact that they got to sit around and talk to each other about this common problem, that they didn't really get to talk to there weren't a lot of people to talk to about this. One person said, I thought it was just me. It's not just you, probably. So this really helps to allay, I think, people's anxieties. They feel, their isolation, and gives them some tips, some ways to say, it's okay, you're going to be okay. There are a few things you can do here that you can tackle right away, and then there are other things if you just get some feedback. You've heard of 360 evaluations. I think they're really useful in this situation. Or even just, like I said, enlisting a couple of your colleagues to give you feedback. There are changes that we can make to make ourselves more successful here.
Geraldine, if people are sensing that they are working with some transplants that might need some coaching, how can they get in touch with you?
If you go up to the top of the page, we have on the right side that says Contact Us. And you can contact us. If you know of anybody who works with transplants in this way, kind of would be a good coach, we'd love to hear about it so we can refer them to the other folks as well. And like I said, if there's anybody out here who would like to co-write an article for this site or write an article for this site or contribute in some way, we would love, love, love that. So please contact us.
Well, folks, there you have it. Minnesota Nice. Do you have any questions for Geraldine?
When's your next get-together?
We don't have it scheduled yet. We've been talking about doing one a month.
Okay.
So we just did the last one January 30th. So we might be doing one at the end of this month or the beginning of March. We did advertise it on the site, and we also advertised it on a meetup site. And then Michael just told me about another meetup site that he has. And a lot of people couldn't come, and there were about 30 people who RSVP'd, about 20 people showed. So we know there's an appetite for this kind of thing. Yeah, Michael.
One thing I've noticed is that transplants don't really want to take the initiative, so it's like they complain about it but then don't want to do anything about it, so they themselves kind of don't engage in the process. So how do you get people to kind of get off the couch and, because that's what I've found, to try to get people into my thing, they complain about it but then don't want to do anything about it.
Yeah,
you know?
we had that happen at that discussion. People really just wanted to stay kind of in the pit of despair, is what it's called,
right.
and complain. And it was a lesson for Corey and myself, because we know now that we are going to have to intentionally make a break. People need to do that. They really need a place where they can unload. And you can't really do that with your family back in California, because they don't really understand it. You can't, it's hard to find other people who are transplants, to be honest, because there's so few of us, really, we're so distributed. So it does help to have a place where people can just let it go. But then what was interesting is that towards the end of the conversation, people started getting in, like, all right, now we got to look at the productive stuff. Now what can we do? So it's like they need to dump, but then they need a place to go to say, okay, now what? So we're hoping to have some of that now what here. We're hoping to more intentionally put that into our discussions. The now what can we do about it? What are some adaptive strategies that would work for us?
I have a test for you.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to school?
For college and grad school?
See, that's the trick. From here, we asked when we said what school you went to, what high school you went to. So we can put you in a bucket.
Oh, you're from Edina. Oh, you're from Coon Rapids.
It's white.
I am from Edina, but
Yeah.
I live there.
On the networking
Yeah,
side
see,
of
we're
it-
so out of that. We're looking at you guys, we're like, and you're all laughing.
On the networking side of that, I want to put in a plug for our May meeting. That's going to be the topic. We're going to talk about networking within this group. We're also going to talk about how you as relocation professionals can help the people you're moving to network within the community, to make those important connections that will help them really become part of Minnesota culture. So, Geraldine, thank you very much. She will be around at the end of the meeting. Minnesota nice.
Thank you.